longing to pursue the Dharma with greater intensity, so as to attain supreme peace of mind. Point 26. One who never tires of performing virtuous deeds is called a Buddha. Attachment to the Dharma, however, is not a virtue, nor is this attachment easy to dissolve. Delusion and enlightenment are equally offensive. You can appreciate how enormously satisfying it is for me to discover at last, through full realization, that just as I am I lack nothing. I know how you feel. Even the honored Shakyamuni clung to the delicious taste of his enlightenment for a period of 3 weeks. Unless you rid yourself of this self-satisfaction, however, you cannot know true Buddhism. The knowledge that my karmic relation to you is profound has made me more self-respecting and prudent. I have now had 1 great enlightenment and 5 small ones. I had forgotten who and where I was and what I was doing until today. Going not knowing one goes, sitting not knowing one sits. This is true samadhi in Zen. Unless the ego is banished to this extent, there cannot be total regeneration. You have done well. Confucius forgot about eating for 3 days, so absorbed did he become in just his music. I had swept away my delusions so thoroughly and penetrated so deeply that I could not return to my usual state. Let it be as it is. I asked to have Dokusan with HARADA-ROSHI, and at that time he pointed out that this was due to the effect of my profound concentration. Yes, due to the force generated by deep mind concentration. Point 27. I thought it might be necessary to ask you to come to give me further instructions. But then a deep insight came to me and I prayed before the Buddha, after which I lost myself in Shikantaza for what must have been 3 hours. There is no need for prayer. At last I was able to return to my normal condition. The Zen I practiced after enlightenment, fancying there was some residue that had to be swept away, was actually desperate. It is clear to me that I can never dispense with zazen. I am grateful, so grateful for the realization that to be just as I am lifetime after lifetime is in itself perfection. In the whole universe I am supreme, and it is perfectly natural. Among the innumerable phenomena in the universe, one only is immaculately manifesting itself. What is it if not you? I am astonished. Opening square bracket. Astonished. From the viewpoint of the delusive feelings. That I am that one. How wonderful, how marvelous. I am in good spirits, so please don't worry about me. I look forward with the greatest pleasure to seeing you again. YAEKO. P.S. Tears of gratitude and joy well up in me when I think that I have accomplished the practice of Zen from first to last without strain, and that I can receive your eternal guidance. Point 28. General comment. An ancient Zen saying has it that to become attached to one's own enlightenment is as much a sickness as to exhibit a maddeningly active ego. Indeed, the profounder the enlightenment, the worse the illness. In her case, I think it would have taken 2 or 3 months for the most obvious symptoms to disappear, 2 or 3 years for the less obvious, and 7 or 8 for the most insidious. Such symptoms are less pronounced in one as gentle as she, but in some they are positively nauseating. Those who practice Zen must guard against them. My own sickness lasted almost 10 years. 8. Presentiment of death. December 28. Dear HARADA-ROSHI, I simply must see you before this year is out, come what may. Let me tell you a disturbing thing. I feel strongly that the time of my parting from you is near, so I beg you to come to see me at any cost. For the sake of the Dharma. I ask this after serious reflection. I assure you it is not a hallucination. YAEKO. Concluding comment. In this her last letter it is clear that YAEKO has a foreboding of death. In view of the radiant tenor of the preceding 7 letters, I was shocked and saddened by the ominous tone of this one. I had hoped that somehow her death would not come so soon. What a terrible pity. One of the sutras says that the ideal way to die is with an intimation of death a week beforehand. With little pain or affliction, and with a mind serenely unshaken, free from all attachment to the body. This is the ideal cherished by all Buddhists, but its realization is far from easy. Master Chuho once solemnly declared, "I want to die with a premonition of death the week before. With my mind serenely unshaken and free from attachment to my body, thence to be reborn into the realm of the Buddhas so as to ultimately gain supreme enlightenment through them and receive their sanction, the better that I may be able to save all sentient beings throughout the innumerable worlds." Quote, YAEKO's death was in this spirit. Prior to this letter I had received a telegram urgently asking me to come to see her. I hastened to her bedside at Kamakura on the 29th of December. 1935. Upon seeing and speaking with her, I confirmed the opening of her mind's eye. She was in tears. So was I. I cried from joy and sorrow. For herself she was not the least bit afraid of dying, 29, but thinking only of the Dharma and the enlightenment of others. She was deeply apprehensive that her friends and acquaintances might mistakenly believe her practice of Zen or her experience of enlightenment had caused her death. Such an erroneous belief, she feared, might lead those not yet having true faith in Buddhism to repudiate the Dharma. If this came to pass, she would have committed a grave offense karmically not only against the Dharma, but against those very persons. Moreover, she would be guilty, she felt, of unfaithfulness and irresponsibility toward Buddhas and all humanity. These thoughts weighed heavily upon her. Though she was willing to suffer rebirth in hell as a consequence, the thought that she might be instrumental in leading other people in the wrong direction was intolerable. During the course of the whole day and night that I remained with her, she discussed these concerns with me. I assured her that she had no reason to worry, as I would set right any such misconceptions. I had often cautioned her against overstraining herself, pointing out that it was contrary to the true law, and further, that those who have the will to do it can carry on Zen practice without straining themselves. It is not impossible, of course, that she could have unwittingly ignored my warnings and, considering her delicate health, sapped her strength by an overexertion which hastened her death. Her greatest fear was that the cause of her death might be misunderstood by people who, laying the blame upon the Dharma in its excessive demands upon her, would come to despise it. 30. Be that as it may. The virtue of her life lies in its sterling example of how it is entirely feasible to practice Zen properly, and even experience perfect enlightenment, right in one's own home and partly from a sickbed. If there be strong determination, one can always practice Zazen even with a frail constitution and without being able to attend session. This it is which exalts her remarkable experience and must be recorded in the modern history of Zen. YAEKO is dead now. A truly great loss. Her courageous life, however, is so inspiring and its influence so far-reaching that it is certain to promote the spread of Buddhism and benefit humankind. 1. Ox refers to the enlightened mind. See ox herding pictures in section VII. 2. That is, through her enlightenment. 3. This is a traditional way of saying that the enlightenment taught by the Buddhas and Dharma ancestors is now an actual fact of one's own experience. 4. What is implied here is that to the truly enlightened all talk of enlightenment is meaningless. 5. That is to say, she can stand unflinchingly before the penetrating gaze of a Buddha no less than the menacing aspect of a devil. This implies utter self-assurance and absolute fearlessness. 6. Here Harada-Roshi is likening YAEKO's statement, "I have forgotten everything and returned to my real home empty-handed," to that made by Dogen upon his return from China, namely, "I have returned home with empty hands. I retain no trace of Buddhism. I say only this. My eyes are horizontal, my nose is vertical." Quote. 7. Peace here connotes the certainty and calmness arising from her initial kensho. 8. The number of times one formally makes obeisance to a Buddha. 9. See this page. 10. See footnote 7. This page. 11. Buji Zen is a Zen without substance, a Zen which denies the validity of the Enlightenment experience. Its adherents maintain that to speak of becoming enlightened is a contradiction in terms since we are all innately enlightened. See this page. 12. Since enlightenment brought her nothing she did not already have, to accept praise for being enlightened would be like accepting praise for having, say, 2 feet. 13. What Harada-Roshi is saying is that the fullest development of all the potentialities of personality and character can take place only after full enlightenment. 14. This probably means that speaking of her enlightenment indiscriminately may lead to a distortion of the Dharma by those unable or unwilling to believe her experience possible. 15. Since the essence of Buddhism is no more than living in harmony with the changing circumstances of one's life, without strain or compulsion, what is there to respect? 16. By naturalness I mean that all things are as they are according to their own nature, apart from all outside influences. Quote. Kobo Daishi. Quoted in Honen the Buddhist Saint, by Coates and Ishizuka, p. 133. 17. And mind is total awareness, that is, just listening when listening, just seeing when seeing, etc. 18. The sense of this may be that through her realization that she is the Dharma incarnate, she now feels a responsibility to teach Buddhism. Accordingly, by respecting and preserving herself she is respecting and preserving the Dharma. 19. While the experience of enlightenment dispels the illusion of myself and other, it does not concomitantly bring about purification of the feelings. Unremitting practice is required to accomplish this latter. See also this page. 20. Literally, only, just, nothing but. Thus, if one is eating, one must be absorbed in just eating. If the mind entertains any ideas or concepts during eating, it is not in tada. Every moment of life lived as tada is the eternal now. 21. In Zen monasteries in Japan, the 5-day-long New Year holidays are ushered in with elaborate rituals and ceremonies. For this reason the period preceding him is a busy one for Roshi and monks alike. 22. Living Buddhism can be said to be transmitted from Buddha to Bodhisattva whenever a disciple's enlightenment reaches the same level as his or her master's. 23. What is implied here is that there would be no cause for wonder if, for instance, a high priest were to attain full awakening, but when a frail girl of 25 becomes profoundly enlightened, it can very well lead to a belittling of the Dharma by those who would refuse to believe such a thing possible. 24. A weak kensho is one in which the world of emptiness is still seen as other than the world of form. Their mutual interpenetration has as yet not been perceived. 25. It is love flowing from the oneness of the awakened Buddha mind in Harada-Roshi and herself. 26. So long as our inner vision is out of focus and we falsely see ourselves and the world as separate and apart instead of one indivisible whole, we are deluded. This distortion, our basic ignorance, colors our view of and reaction to everything, in consequence of which we do not see, that is, experience, things as they are in their true nature. Enlightenment, while revealing our solidarity with all things, thus bringing into accurate focus our distorted inner vision, paradoxically gives rise to a fine mist of pride in such an accomplishment, and this mars the inherent purity of the mind. So long as this defilement remains, there is lingering disquiet. But this very disquiet acts as a goad to continued practice until the attachment to one's enlightenment has been severed and supreme peace and freedom attained. 27. See this page. 28. Out of respect and humility one always looks to one's teachers and seniors for guidance. Dogen Zenji in his Hotsugamen asks for the compassionate guidance of Buddhas and ancestral teachers. 29. Compare. If one sees the way in the morning, one can gladly die in the evening. Quote opening parenthesis. Confucius. 30. YAEKO's deep concern over possible misunderstandings as to her death may seem unreasonable. Why need she feel answerable for the way others choose to construe the cause of her passing? But her feelings are understandable when we remember that true enlightenment, by revealing the interrelation of all living beings and the repercussions on other lives of every action, generates a sense of responsibility not only for what one has done, but also for what one has failed to do in any given situation.